Alright, that's a bit of a fun. Okay, quick check with the code, environment is fine, the Wi-Fi is fine, so we saw the demo working and everything is good. And a couple of good news is, and my good friend Steve is there, he's celebrating his birthday. Happy birthday, Steve. So, yeah, a lot of new things, and so does the AI, right? It's been here for a while. I don't know how many of you have tried, but quick show of hands, how many of you have heard about AI? Such a stupid question, isn't it? All right, let me rephrase it. How many of you have used AI before? Okay, so when you mean have you used it, is it in the means of using ChatGPT? Mostly? Okay, cool. Alright, I mean, it's no surprises, thank you for sharing that. Like, one of the areas where generative AI tools have shown real potential, is assisting developers in creating softwares, and you can see this is a recent one from IDC where it's about 67% of using for text generation, which is ChatGPT, so we are all contributing to that. And of course, interestingly, what you can see that's catching up is about 55% is about code generation. And also, 2022, a study by Microsoft, the CEO of GitHub, says that almost 80% of the code pushed into GitHub is completely assisted with some sort of AI technology, be it Copilot or any other means of AI, right? So that means it shows a lot of potential with what AI can do to us. And also more specifically from quality engineering perspective, right? I mean, this is the conference all about. And this is from a Lambda Test Future of Testing survey. I was part of the survey, driving the survey, so we reached out to a lot of companies and people where 77% of organizations are using or planning to use AI in some sort of flows, workflow or text generation or test data generation, script generation, or be it whatever it is, right? Now, this is an interesting piece of research that the Carnegie Mellon University team has done a beautiful survey and study about how AI augmentation, software development, and operations is going to change the entire things. Well, in traditional landscape, or most of the software today, except a few, that is running in Android and iPhones, are done in a more traditional fashion, right? And if you see the AI-augmented development, the increasing use of AI tools, be it for code generation or be it for code reviews, a lot of things would really, really help you, right? So the landscape is evolving. AI is playing a larger role. We all know that in terms of how we're building it, in terms of how we're using that to personalize our content, and practically it's really helping. How many of you agree with it? Most of you not? Okay, let's have a chat. I think it's 12 o'clock. Speaker time, isn't it, Cam? Right. Okay. Cool. Let's have a chat about that and see what your opinions are and how does it things. So, yeah, there's different quadrants that says where how AI is helping not only in software development as well as from system operation perspective where it helps you. So the demo that you just saw, it was just about me creating a code of a Selenium-based code, which might be mostly easy for you to look back, refer, but from a system operation perspective, there's a lot more things that you could do and automate stuff. Now, with that said, AI augmenting systems helping move from conventional and traditional ways of developing softwares to AI augmented development, AI augmented system operations. Now, with this software paradigm, like what all we used to test, the softwares and the web applications that we have is all traditional software, right? So where a computer can perform what it's been instructed to do, right? Whereas in the way of machine learning, so the computer can perform a task it has learned to do. So don't mind the text in the image because it's created by DALL-E. So for most of you who worked in AI and knows DALL-E, it doesn't understand text properly, right? It's about, I know to speak, but I don't know the spelling of each word, right? It's about that. So it's quite funny how it works, and that's where a lot of testers are needed. So our jobs are not going away, so don't worry about that. Where was I? Yeah, computer can perform what it's very interested to do, right? But so does the testing of machine learning apps. So in a traditional way, as we saw, it's doing what we instructed to do. So we know the output even before we give it what an input. So it's pretty deterministic, and so we are checking what is right versus wrong. Whereas in an ML-based applications, what is ML? He was talking about AI, and so what is ML suddenly? It's machine learning, short form for ML. But if you don't know what is ML, don't worry, I have a few slides to cover on it. But any AI ML based apps, it's all about probability and predictions, right? And it's all about non-deterministic outputs. I don't know how many of you heard about, I think it was the keynote, Tariq was talking about digital twins and non-deterministic testing. So it's an interesting topic. If you probably didn't get a chance to listen, hopefully it's recorded and you can listen to it. So the testing focuses more on accuracy, bias, consistency, and a lot of those stuff rather than just the input and output, right? So a lot of thinking has to go in, and that's where a lot of AI and ML tools will help in assisting and testing not just the output or the behavior, but it's more than that, right? So when you wanted to check for accuracy and bias, it goes way back. Imagine if there was no AI tools, it'll be more of going back to our 12th standard or university mathematics, Bayes theorem, and all of that. Do you all want to again go back to that age? I don't want to, because I was pretty weak at maths in school, and I didn't like it actually. But karma, it's following us. And if you want to work in AI, you have to have a bit of a mathematics to it. So, where am I leading with this, right? So in an era of AI, it's not about replacing machines. So quality engineers, quality analysts, whatever you name it, I'm not after titles. But we have a lot more needs of testing to do, more than ever, right? So I'll leave you with that thought there. And let's talk about AI. So just a quick recap. I thought it would be good to have, what is an AI? It's just a pretty standard ChatGPT response showing, it helps and it tries to be smart, right? That's it. And is it really smart? We don't know. As you saw, with just, in a command prompt trying it to be, please make sure it's smart. So if you try to be nice, it probably gives you a nice response back. And in terms of machine learning, well, it tries to, this is where things get interesting, right? So machine learning is actually a branch of AI where, it tries to learn the patterns and associations of it, and it will help us to do some of the data. Like for example, the previous demo, it's actually good that I checked the demo so you could, go back always and refer. So it will help us perform that specific task. Now, where does this machine learning fits into the overall taxonomy of artificial intelligence, right? So if you're very new to artificial intelligence and have just used ChatGPT, but nothing else, right? Because I didn't have the time, or there's so much information available, but I don't know where to start. Well, hopefully this slide that gives you an information about, what is the overall taxonomy of artificial intelligence looks like. It starts with AI, and then you have something called narrow AI, and there is something called strong AI as well. So there's two differentiation of strong AI and narrow AI. Strong AI is very, very, very advanced, where it almost tries to mimic what a human does, right? And there are already a few apps and robots, powered by AI, which does a few things. Let's not get in there, because it's not something that we do very right. But it's all about narrow AI, where it refers to task-specific systems, where these are designed to do particular jobs like language translations, image recognitions, like helping us write an automation code, review a large document and giving a summary, or if you're too bored enough, or you don't have a time to look at a full YouTube video, just paste the URL, get a summary of it. A lot of things that can happen, right? So that's where the narrow AI comes into picture. And now, where does the large language model comes into picture? Like imagine the demo that I show you. So that's where the large language model. So I was actually using one of those large language models. When I mean those, you can imagine there are many. So there are many large language models available, and I was running one of them in my laptop. And it's a trained language model, and I'll get you there. So where does LLM fits in? Like if you see from a previous slide, you have narrow AI, machine learning, deep learning, and then there is generative AI, right? So within generative AI, there is large language model, and within that there are a couple of things inside it, which is actually what powers ChatGPT, right? So you have a generative pre-trained transformer. That itself is an entire concept. That's where the neural networks and all of those comes in. So let's not get into that again. So what are we going to focus on now is the large language models. So these models are a forefront in the AI research and development, enabling machines to understand algorithms and help us, do whatever task that we want to do. So these LLMs are actually transforming and powering applications from the chatbots to very far advanced usages, helping organizations getting into the forefront of AI, right? Nowadays, AI become a checklist. Like, I don't know how many of you are CXOs here, but if you go and speak to any of the CXOs, AI is one of the checklists. So if you have something to talk about AI, that becomes an interest of time to have a chat with them. So there are a lot of large language models, starting with ChatGPT 3 and GPT-4. I think GPT-4 is developed by OpenAI. It's a large language model which actually powers the ChatGPT, and which is all we are so used to. And then there are a number of other models. I'm going to be using one of these actually two of these within hopefully the time permits, and I can show you some demo. So there is large language models, right? I mentioned large language models will help you do from anything from text generation to image recognition to anything that you could imagine. Just try it and see what AI can give you, right? So there is a concept, something called multimodal LLMs. So beyond just understanding and generating text, the next frontier in large language models is multimodal models. So these models are capable of processing and generating multiple types of data, right? Such as text, images, audio within a single source of framework, right? If you have an image, you could just feed it in, or just have two images, feed it in, and ask the LLMs to compare. It'll give you an output, or just give a text in prompt, and the image will, give you whatever it depends on how good you're at prompting, but that's another case of discussion. But that's where multimodals LLMs will help you out. So multimodal LLMs are equipped with visual, oral, gestural, linguistic, and spatial abilities, where these LLMs go far beyond the normal GPTs, like of course the GPT-4 if you have a subscription model. That's where they enable the multimodal, which will give you DALL-E-based images as well. Now, so general large language models like GPT-4 or by OpenAI are designed to handle a task by various domains, whereas there is something called customized LLMs, right? So ChatGPT is powered by GPT-4, which is a large language model. All right, Manoj, you've said that 3 times. Let's move on. Thank you. So these are all publicly trained large language models, right? So you can't use this for your work purposes. You can't put in your data into that and ask for something. Of course, we really tempted to do that. Hopefully there's no cybersecurity or security person sitting in this room like, what are you talking is bullshit. But that's where customized large language models will help you, right? So once you have a large language model that you can customize, that's within your firewall, that's within your company's network, you could customize it to tell what sort of data you want or not let the data go out of your company. You can do multiple such things, right? So for example, general purpose LLM, imagine ChatGPT. For customized LLM, think of something where the example that I have is a medical large language models which are trained with some healthcare data. So how many of you have heard in news, I think this was 3 years ago, where AI is helping to detect breast cancer? Not many of you? Yeah, okay, now I can see. So, so that's where AI is helping in healthcare industry, where it can detect, with various images, whether the cancer is there within the breast. But much more than healthcare industry, there are a lot of other use cases as well. And funnily, myself and my mate, when I was working at ThoughtWorks, we had a funny experiment to check whether the AI is able to distinguish between a beer and a wine. That was a very interesting piece, and I think there is some demo with it. If you're interested, talk to me and I'll share the link to it. There's also a complete customized LLM where it distinguishes, and it was so funny how it get confused about having a beer but in a wine glass, having a wine in a beer glass, and probably AI is drunk. We don't know. So that's where things get interesting. So that's where customized LLMs will help you. And so now tell me, what should I do to get custom large language models, right? So that's where things get interesting. A lot of tech development work will happen if you wanted to have large language model that's customized to use within your private domain, where you need to define a task, select a model. Selecting a model means using one of the ones, in the previous slide that I was showing, like BERT or LLMA, a lot of those models. And you need to collect the data. I don't know how many of you have heard about Hugging Face. It's a website where it gives you a collection of, imagine how test data is for test framework. Hugging Face gives you models which will help you train the data for LLMs, right? So just imagine that. So you need to collect some models from that, and then you split the data, you train it, and then you evaluate the model, and successfully you can roll out to the entire organization. So that's how typically it works. I'm not going too deep in it because I'm not going to talk about customizing LLMs at this talk, but this talk is all about getting LLMs working in our laptops, and hopefully the key takeaway from this talk will be for you to know about what is LLMs, where does it fit in the AI ecosystem, how can I get started, and more importantly, how can I bring this into my test framework, right? Cool. So now, large language models and system things. So imagine large language models more like a kid, right? Where kids always try to be nice with you. When you ask something, they immediately respond without even thinking, right? Of course, there are some smart kids, but most of the kids are like, yeah, yes, dad, yeah, I can do this. Wow, okay, do you know what it's supposed to take to do that? Like, no, right? So it's a spontaneous interaction. Some of you have read this book called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. How many of you have read this book? Let me ask again. How many of you have read this book? Each time I ask it, I can see your hands up going. So, so you're like my models, and I'm training you. And each time I get some hands up. So, right. So LLMs. So what this book? I mean, in a summary, if you have not read this book, so this book says that it's system 1 and then system 2, where it tells how does your brain works in terms of thinking, where instinctive and then there's slower. So if you ask like, what is 4 plus 4? What is 4 plus 4? Sorry? 8. Okay, cool. So what is 36 minus 22 plus 24? Right. So 4 plus 4 was system 1. And I didn't even remember what I asked. But that was system 2. Right? So that's where the differentiation is. So LLMs try to think more from system 1 perspective. So if it's not actually giving you that output that you're expecting, that's because it's using system 1 way of thinking and giving an instantaneous response and trying to be impress you, right? Hey, yes, you asked a question and here's the data. Well, are you impressed? Actually, no. So you go and ask again, and that's how things goes on loop and forever, right? So in essence, AI can simulate a rapid and impressionistic thinking about system 1, but we must remain aware that it needs a lot of data, and it lacks analytical capabilities that the system 2 has. So I know over the period of a time, we develop system 2 thinking, right? So likewise, LLM also need to develop that capability, and it all depends on how do you train the data, everything that comes into one picture. So, hallucination. So when you talk about AI, hallucination comes along as well. And that's because despite its advanced capabilities, these models sometimes produce an output that's absolutely foolish, right? And that happens because AI is predicting what comes next based on patterns of data, but not actually having a system 2 way of thinking. So that's where AI hallucinates a lot, and you need to always have a human in the loop. So that's where a human in the loop as a construct comes into picture, and that's where you could be, I could reassure you, well, from my present capacity, they say that AI is not taking your jobs away, and it always needs a human in the loop. And what we need to do is, ramp up, train up with those skills, and get the flow going. Now, so enough about complete introduction about AI, where it fits. A quick check, does that make sense? Yeah, cool, thank you. Happy faces, happy? So now, let's quickly jump in to see how running large language models locally takes up your effort, right? As we delve deeper, there is something called OLLAMA, OLLAMA. Hopefully it's not the Dalai Lama that we spoke about today. It's a funny story, so you can ask him about the story. Right, so OLLAMA helps you run large language models easily, right? It's much like how, if I want to give an analogy, it's more like how many of you know Docker containers? Perfect, now I can tell the story. So if you could remember how Docker helped you containerize and ship applications and what it did to the entire ecosystem of DevOps and automation, the same OLLAMA does for using LLMs. So imagine OLLAMA is like Docker, but OLLAMA for large language models, right? So it helps you package and run applications as a thing. So you don't need to go to a Hugging Face or those open API things, have the large language model running and then keep on training and use it. So there is, fine, this is by Meta AI if I'm not wrong, but they have done this for us to easily get started because this has, so when you talk about ChatGPT, right? So there is a model behind it that runs and powers the AI, And then there is a user assistance, a model which complements the large language model and helps you give that output. So there's two different things. There is a large language model called GPT-4. And then there is a user assistance interface where you ask a question, goes back to the model and comes back with a response. So that's how it works. So that's where Ollama also helps you, where it has that raw models trained, and when you ask any questions, and they help you answer and everything, more like a ChatGPT, but in a more advanced way, where it comes in a way of using as a command line model, or it gives you an API that you could use it. So now you can imagine, right? So ChatGPT is all about using it in the UI, but large language models specifically from Ollama, where it gives you an API to interact with. So when you have an API, you could do, there are endless possibilities. You can call the APIs using curl commands or any programming language you have a way of calling an API. I'm sure most of you have done that in some cases. So imagine you can use those same programming language construct, call an API, and then ask AI to do a number of things, and that's what we're going to do as well. Now, within Ollama models, there are two different things that I want you to remember, which is LLAMA and which is LLAVA. I don't know why do they love these namings, but it's tough. But remember Dalai Lama. That's what I want to say. So, large language model, Meta AI, is LLAMA, and then large language and vision assistance is LLAVA. Right? So there's two different things, and LLAMA is something by Meta AI which will help you do a natural language processing, whereas the textual and visual information. So let me do a quick check if you all are being attentive with my talk. So if you want to give a one word, which actually I showed in a couple of slides previously. So what is Lava when it can do both textual and visual information? What do you call it? Perfect. Cam, do we have like a 50 gift cards? Like no, okay. All right, let's jump into and check one of the models how it is right? So as I mentioned, you have an CLI way of interacting with the large language models, and you also have an API way of doing it. So now let's check how you can do it from a command line input, where it just takes you. So let me show you this. So I have Ollama running in my laptop. So if you quickly do, that's how it looks like. Okay, it's not showing me. So when you, Ollama is a downloadable software. If you're using Mac, it's a DMG file. If it's using Windows, it's a exe file, so you can download it. And then much like a Docker, right? So Docker, you install and then you go within Docker and then pull different Docker images and you run it. So similarly, Ollama, it has various different models where you install Ollama as a software within your laptop. And within that, you could go to your command prompt and run Ollama, run Llama 3, which means we are actually making a large language model called LLAMA 3, which is the latest version, running it in our terminal. So once you do that, you can do a curl command to make sure it checks if it works, and you have localhost 11343, blah blah blah, and all that stuff, and it gives you a response. So now let's do a quick scenario, right? So asking LLM to help write a test script. Have you seen this before? Like just before my talk, I did a demo, and that was basically this. So making sure everything works, because just until 9:30ish when I was trying to work, it didn't work. And I was giving like demo codes, please help me, and finally it started working. So that's when I was trying to be nice with LLMs. So yeah, if you want an output, so make sure. So since we already seen the demo, you can imagine that's how LLM models will help you write the script, specifically LLAMA, right? So you could give any, of course, I am not encouraging you to do that, because I know you, at your test environments, your pre-prod, you have multiple environments and it's different. So once you have those customized large language models deployed within your company, you can do that stuff, because it'll help you automate the script. And of course, there will be here and there some problems with DOM or different locators that you would want to make sure it works, because that's, in my opinion, it's sort of 70% or 75% speeds up your test creation process and helps you focus more on other important tasks, right? Because you have various different tools, right? So tooling is tooling, but then it's more about what do you do with the tooling and how do you do it at what time, and what happens after that. So do you actually have an ROI of using that, the time. So 70% time is saved, but what are you going to use that 70%? So more productive tasks, maybe, a lot of that stuff. And so now coming to LLA VA model, which is nothing but the multimodal. So at the prompt where you can say what is this in an image, and it'll actually tell you what that. So it can actually read images. It's like a human, right? So you have an image, and if you're shown an image, you can of course describe it. So the same LLA or VA can does as well, and of course you can do it in an API usage perspective as well. So imagine that. Okay, I'm showing you. Pretend you didn't see this. So given LLMs can read an image and help you with something, what are number of use cases that you can think about? What have I done? Right, okay, some answers please. Of course, you already saw one, but anything else that you could think of? So those of you who didn't see it, one was accessibility, right? So once you have an image, like you can ask large language models to check what that image is, etc., etc. But apart from this, what other use cases that you can think of? Visual comparison, okay, yeah. Image validation, yeah, okay, you can ask LLM, hey, check whether this image has real Manoj or someone else, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, yeah, make sure the branding is all right, yeah. Content validation.
Face detection.
Face detection, oh yeah, maybe. Streaming, oh yeah, okay, let's talk about that. Are you a gamer? Okay, cool. How many of you are gamers? Not many? Okay, that's sad. All right, one of you said here, what was that?
I used to be a gamer.
Yeah, oh, right, okay. Yeah, life changes, isn't it? Yeah, I never get time as well, as my newborn keeps me awake all night. But yeah, let's get back to the business. Any other scenarios?
Just viewing the UI and actually identifying the steps.
Okay, that was more generalistic. Right, okay. Still counts.
You earlier mentioned about breast cancer, a lot of other things, for example, changing the style, finding out that, lot of examples.
Cool. Cool. That's like using a low-hanging fruit, right? So he picked up an example that I showed. Tell in the back. That's good. Thank you. Anything else?
Obstruction detection.
Sorry, what was that?
Obstruction detection.
What do you mean by that? Obstruction.
Like if there are any robots that they're automating and like non-deterministical use cases.
Okay.
Scenarios where there's a stone in between and then.
Oh right. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I think data scraping from the image.
Yeah. More advanced usage than OCRs, right? So how many of you know OCR, optical character recognition, which is way back, and probably LLMs can now help us with that as well. All right. Sorry. Trademark. Yeah. Yes. A lot of different things, right? So it gets interesting, right? So I hope we can do a lot of startup ideas from this. Just joking. So yeah, accessibility comes in as a very important topic, right? So imagine you take a screenshot of your application to test, feeding that to LLMs and asking, hey, check whether this screenshot goes by the rules of all the web content accessibility guidelines by 2.1 or 2.2, whatever rule it is, and tell me whether it looks fine or not. How cool it would be if LLMs would be able to do that. Of course, there will be here and there some learning from it, but you get something that you couldn't imagine without just taking a screenshot. So how many of you have a screenshot wrapper in your test framework? Let me ask again. Hopefully I can see more hands. Sorry guys. How many of you have a screenshot ability in your test framework? When it goes fails or pass, you take, okay, I can see more hands. There you go. It wasn't me poking around, but and how many of you have a habit of not seeing the screenshot? This is where it gets funny. Pretend your colleagues are not nearby or your managers are not nearby. But I'm used to be one of those guys. I never look at the screenshot, look at the log files as stack trace, put it in Google, hopefully Stack Overflow. Someone would have asked before, whatever the fix is, copy paste it, and that's how things goes, right? So, but a lot more things could be done with screenshot. But more than ever now, with LLMs in place, a lot of things could be done for just an example that I mentioned. And different things like an SEO evaluation. Someone mentioned about content where you can ask LLM to evaluate a screenshot and then give from an SEO perspective how does it stand. And there are a number of possibilities, just like whatever we all discussed now, right? Now, let's do a demo where asking large language model, which is LLAVA. So I'm having a LLAVA model that's running in my laptop, and I'm asking LLM, hey, I'll give you a screenshot. Look at that screenshot and tell me what could I improve from an accessibility standpoint, right? So, and I think I explained this before, I'll quickly skim through using multimodal vision. So you have an application under test, you have an automation script, you capture a screenshot, you send the screenshot to the model, and the model analyzes the screenshot, the model responds, there you go, and you have the report. So put it into context, this is how it looks. So this is a plain Java-based Selenium code. For those of you who know about me, I'm one of the contributors of Selenium, so I have an affinity towards using Selenium. Of course, I love all the other frameworks as well. But this makes me put together things easy. So if you see this piece of code, it goes to a website, takes a screenshot, and then quits, right? So now, if you want to elevate the script, augment with LLM, what are things it takes? So now, how many of you have called an API, or probably rest assured similar? Have you used, right? Yeah, most of you, or similar spec flow API based test where you call an API within a Java code or a C# code. So that's what typically I do. So I have a payload that I'm sending where in the Java code I say, here is a model and here is a prompt and here is the image that I want to do. So now that prompt is an interesting factor because prompt engineering itself is emerging as a branch of study within AI where you need to be equipped to know what you need to ask. If you just ask AI, how are you? It will tell you, I'm fine. But if you need more data, of course you need to fine tune the question that you want to ask, the data that you want to get, and accordingly it will tell you. So that's what it looks like, where, okay, so it's a GIF image. So that's the prompt. It's a big prompt where I'm asking, as an accessibility expert, I want you to look at the screenshot and, follow 2.1, 2.2 model and then give a response, whatever you think like. So let's quickly show you. Yeah, so if you've probably used Axe for accessibility testing, I'm sure you would have some way looked at this website where this is an intentionally accessibility flawed website that you can look at where you can at least get a lot of those issues that you can track, where I'm getting at things, and then I have something called perform Ali analysis, and I have a prompt, as I mentioned, where you don't need to read it from the back, but just trust me. I'm giving a prompt which I'm asking LLM to, hey, look at the screenshot and help me analyze any accessibility flaws. And here is an endpoint. And just sending the payload and then asking it to generate an HTML report. So let's see if it works. Quickly run it. Using my Wi-Fi hotspot, so it might act up a little bit. So there you go, it opened the website. So now it takes a screenshot and takes a bit of a time, maybe a performance thing, but once you have a server with a lot of GPUs that can accelerate. So by the way, there is, I think I'm using a 7 billion character, sorry, not 7 billion character, 7 billion parameter large language model that I'm using, where it helps you look through those data and gives you all the output. But it's still running, so I'm not going to wait any further. So I'll actually open up the one that I've run as a check. So that's how it looks like. So it took a screenshot. Here is, for the screenshot. And here is the value. So it gives you, so if I copy paste this into notes somewhere, so it gives you all of that data. So based on the provided screenshot of this page, blah, 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 here is a detailed accessibility evaluation, contrast ratio, the text within the dark red boxes are being, I don't want to read everything, but that is just an example, right? So it looked at WCAG 2.2 level, AA standard or AAA standard, and gives you keyboard navigation issues, focus indicators, screen reader evaluation, a bit of it, but it needs more use of ARIA landscape. So if you're someone who used to do accessibility testing, this would make more sense. Otherwise, you could imagine, okay, there is something wrong with the web page, of course, because it's a flawed website. And then there is accessible forms and different things. How cool is that? Thanks to the LLMs. So now going back. Hopefully I'm not running too much out of my time. How much time left, sorry? 2 minutes, okay. Right, so that is just one of those possibilities of using LLM. Now if you want to take it up a notch from LLMs, I'm not sure how many of you have heard about a term called RAG, which is a retrieval augmented generation. So instead of sending that screenshot directly to a standard LLM, which is what we did, this is more like on steroids, right? Where you can send it to a RAG-enabled system where the only thing that changes is instead of sending to the model, you're sending it to a RAG. So what does RAG does is, so as I mentioned, LLMs are like kids, where it has some data, and within that limited data, it tells you whatever you ask for. But imagine a large language model which can go above and beyond, and gives you back whatever the trained data is, but also looks for further information all over the internet or wherever you want to look at it, and gives you much more data. So that can do a lot more things, right? So that's where RAGs will help you out. Like for example, if you have your internal knowledge management system, you could use RAG-based systems to feed in all the data and use a prompt generator, and gives you all of this data within a minute. Now, we're only scratching the surface of what AI can do, and there's a much larger role that AI and LLMs can do within our testing and quality assurance space, and we just witnessed just a few things. And there's a lot more things that you can do with AI, quickly skim through. So these are some of the things that I tried working with. This is during my Lambda test time, where we helped with test oracles, test data management, self-healing testing, and all of it. And there are some more libraries. So if you wanted to know what are different libraries that you could use it. So one of those things from here is LangChain. LangChain will be a key framework which can help you. This is more like helping you use different, because not every time you'll get everything from a single LLM. That's where LangChain will help you to bundle different models and help you achieve what you want to do. And of course, with anything it comes with challenge. With AI-based continuous testing, it also comes with some challenge, especially the bias, because with the data, with the train, it can be biased, it will not give you the full fledged. Of course, test environments, most of you have test environments as a problem, and there is skill gap. Of course, ethical consideration, that becomes a big thing, because still not many companies approve AI within the organization. But hopefully, once they know what potential it has, it will go beyond. Yeah, that's some of the challenges. And putting it in a landscape, there are a number of tools and companies are working towards AI landscape. At an infrastructure layer, we have companies like AWS, Azure, blah, blah, blah. And then at an intelligence and foundation layer, that's where Hugging Face, an example that I mentioned, comes in the picture, as well as OpenAI. And within the application layer, you have different, like Copilot, for example, to pick an example. And the LangChain that I spoke about is in the middle layer, which brings you. So combining all of this, you have an AI app that will help you do that. Right, I wanted to leave you with a thought where embedding future of testing through intelligent automation will transform different challenges that we have with opportunities that the power of AI will help us deliver things in a more production. Well, this is me giving some idea and asking ChatGPT, hey, give me a quote that no one has said before, and I want to put my name to it, and there you go. So if it doesn't make sense, don't worry, because it's just ChatGPT, and yeah, I don't blame it. Thanks for listening to my talk. My name is Manoj Kumar. I'm one of the practice leads at Cognizant Australia, working with Steve, one of my friends here. And I'm also a distinguished speaker by the American Computing Society, and I'm a huge open source fan. For those of you who already know me, I'm one of the Selenium contributors, also contribute to Appium, and I have my own projects in observability with Selenium, Kubernetes with Selenium, and tons of different things. And apart from automation, I'm a huge fan and work towards accessibility and DevOps. And when I'm not doing any work, well, I like to see MotoGP and play basketball, but now my newborn became a passion now, so looking after him. Thank you so much, and connect with me on LinkedIn. You can have a bit of a chat about it. Cool. Yeah, thank you. And if this is interesting, and if you already have Cognizant working with you, feel free to have a chat with us. I will be happy to help you with some problem solving with AI. All right, gift card. So those of you who are leaving the hall, you might be missing this. So I'll ask you to please stay back. Okay, thank you. All right, question. So which model will help us with multimodal capabilities? Big show of hands. Okay, I saw Chetan. Is it both or one? Okay. That doesn't count. Let me ask you another question. Sorry, what is the framework that I told about which will help us bundle different models? Okay. Again, obviously, did you see anyone? Okay, one more question. Which framework I contribute to?
Selenium.
Come on, guys. Okay, I'll probably hand it over to you because I saw your hand up raised. Yeah, you could come over, just pass it on. Thank you.